Are you frustrated by how your heavy guitars sound harsh or clouded no matter how much you EQ them? I used to struggle to get the clarity I wanted until I discovered the technique that all the pros use to filter out hidden frequencies in your guitar tone. And it's a technique I've used whilst mixing the last few Sylosis records or mixing the guitar stem on the last few Architects records that I played on. So in this video I'm going to show you the technique to remove all those nasty frequencies, leaving you with a tight, clear and heavy guitar tone. Now a lot of purists will tell you this isn't something they used to do back in the day, and they're very right. This approach of getting quite surgical with EQ is more of a modern day thing. But you've got to think back to before the millennium, most people were still recording to tape. And the thing about tape is it naturally smooths out your tone. It's kind of like a nice warm blanket on top of everything. So when digital recording became much more common, it brought with it convenience and clarity, but sometimes that clarity was a bit too unforgiving. It's kind of like examining your skin through one of those magnifying mirrors. Every imperfection stands out really clearly. And that's exactly what digital audio did. It exposes all those really harsh transients. It doesn't give that same warm coloration that all those tape recordings did back in the day. Now, I've made videos on this channel previously about mixing guitars with no EQ whatsoever, and it's all about dialing in an amazing guitar tone at the source. So if it's possible to dial in amazing guitar tones with literally zero EQ in the mix, why should you learn or care about filtering out harsh frequencies? Well, this should be a skill that you learn to utilize when it's needed, because it can make or break a guitar tone. You might be limited with the gear that you have, or if you're a producer, you might be limited by the files that you're being sent. And if you don't get sent a DI track and you've just been sent a really horrible guitar tone, you need to know how to identify the nasty frequencies and how to get rid of them. Think of your guitar tone as a nice, neatly contained garden, and every now and then you get these weeds that just shoot up really fast above all the grass. Think of this technique as mowing the lawn again and getting everything down to the same level so none of those harsh frequencies or weeds stick out. So having this technique under your belt is going to help train your ears up. You're going to learn when to recognize these problem frequencies and how to get rid of them. But the one catch is this technique can be quite addictive. The key is to do this in moderation and not to go looking for problems where there aren't any. When I first started producing and mixing, I was really confident in capturing great guitar tones, but anytime I A-B'd against some of my favorite tones on records that I liked, I was always so confused why my guitar tones sounded really cloudy and harsh compared to all the tones that I loved. And then when I discovered this technique, I learned that this is what I'd been missing all along, and my guitar mixing leveled up overnight. So if you've got this far into the video, you have no idea what I'm talking about or what filtering out harsh frequencies entails. I'm going to break it down step by step, super easy. Okay, so how do you do this? The easiest way to identify these problem frequencies is finding a really simple bit of chugging on one note in the riff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create a boost. I'm going to boost around 10, 15 dB. And we're going to make it really narrow. And I like using on Pro Q3 the 24 dB octave for finding these frequencies. And what I'm going to do is, instead of using my eyes, and this frequency analyzer is great for showing you visually where some problems may be, and I can talk about that in a minute. But the best thing to do is close your eyes, move your EQ around, move which frequency it is around, and see which frequencies sound the loudest and are most consistently prominent in the tone. So let's do that right now. I'm just going to move it around. I'm not going to look at the screen. I'm going to look over here and I'm going to see which frequency stands out to me the most. Okay, so we've landed on 2.1K and we're going to reduce that frequency now. Now that annoying clicking sound is just this section of riff that we've looped. So let's just loop a bigger section. Now that we've got this notch made, I'm going to turn it on and off and we can see if it's clearing up the tone. And we're going to start with it off first. Now I can hear another frequency, and this time I'm just going to use my eyes. If you don't have FabFilter Pro Q3 or something with a great frequency analyzer that will show you where these problems are, try and train your ears up by doing what I was doing, making a really tight and loud boost, looking away or closing your eyes, and moving it around till you hear the loudest whistle. And I'll do it again anyway, but I think I know where this next one is going to end up as well. So let's move this around now. Okay, so 3.4. Now on a lot of my cabs, 3.2 comes up. And now I don't know what cab this is. This isn't a cab that I still have, I don't think. I think it might be a Marshall one. That is an area that I would have been looking at cutting because I could see it was sticking out quite a lot. And then another one that I can just see is up here. And because this area of our guitar tone is the most crucial when it comes to metal, particularly if you're in a higher tuning and you play more like thrashy stuff and you really want that biting, aggressive sound and you want to hear all that pick clarity, unfortunately, this area is the area you want loudest in your tone. And when I say unfortunately, it's because this area is usually plagued with all these harsh frequencies and whistles. So the more of these you can reduce, and kind of if you imagine it like really tall weeds growing out of your lawn and you can just lop the heads off them, you can get that area louder in the mix without anything being too annoying, and you're going to improve your headroom. So I'm just going to boost the output level of this EQ, because what I've done now is by removing these frequencies, I've taken off a tiny bit of volume from the tone. And then we can see how it sounds turning this on and off. So let's start with it off and we can listen to it in context, and then I'll flick it on. So the way I normally work, I typically like to do my notching and filtering on one instance of EQ, and then I'll use a separate EQ to do some boosting or cutting in a more broad strokes. But just for the sake of doing it all on one screen or one plugin, I'm going to show you that because we've removed so much from this area now, that I would do a more wide boost in general to bring that level back up in that area. Cool, so let's start with that off and then turn it on. So this is something that you can easily overdo, and I don't recommend just going out of your way trying to find problems where they may not be, but this is definitely something that has helped me and a great tool to have under your belt. It's particularly helped me as a mix engineer when I've been sent guitar tones in particular where I don't have a DI track, I can't reamp them, and I just have to work with what I've been given. The more you do this day in, day out, the more your ears get used to hearing these frequencies, the more that they will just instinctively know where they are without visually looking. But if you can have something that's visually going to tell you where there's a problem frequency and it's whistling and you can see it peaking in that area, it speeds things up. In the past couple of years, I've done some live mixes for bands like Creator or Malevolence, and particularly when you're working with live recordings, you're in a less than ideal recording environment. Certain venues or stages may cause certain build-ups of frequencies, particularly in drums and overheads or that kind of stuff, or a guitar tone, or sometimes there's just a whistle coming from like a bass cabinet. And knowing when to utilize this is really great. The more you do it, the more your ears will get trained to kind of just hear these harsh frequencies, and you'll know when to take them out and when you're potentially overdoing it. Remember, the goal isn't to overdo it, just to trim those weeds and let your guitar tone shine. But you're only going to get an amazing guitar tone if it's amazing at the source. So if you want to learn how to dial in an amazing tone, you want to make sure you're not overlooking the main, most important factor in your whole signal chain. Check out this video next to learn more.